Hi there, my name is Mike. I talk about animation a lot of the time here on the channel, and today I'm talking about an animated feature film called SEAL Team. This released, I think, somewhat recently on Netflix. I didn't get an exact release date. It comes from Triggerfish Animation Studio based in South Africa. This studio actually is responsible for Kumba from 2013. If you've seen Kumba, it's available for free via YouTube Movie, so you can take a look at that if you want. I mention that because Kumba, I was not a big fan of. I think visually it's very ugly, and most of the budget seemed to go to some pretty big names that they got for the voice acting in this one. And SEAL Team, on the other hand, I think looks pretty great visually, certainly in comparison to Kumba and some of their other previous work. They've done a lot of TV stuff as well, but not too many other features. It's that trendy thing, it's been here for a few years now, where you make it look like stop motion, even though it's actual 3D models, CG, and visually in general, I think it's quite nice. Fitting and pleasant color palettes in our various settings. Obviously, most of it takes place in the ocean, so tons of blues. Every once in a while, you get some reds for dangerous areas and when there's trouble about. But the story, a ragtag group of SEALs, sort of modeled after the A-Team, have to stand up to the sharks. The sharks hate them. They are oppressing them. It's a class metaphor. It's a metaphor for racism, potentially. Any story or power dynamic where one group is oppressing another group, withholding power, and it creates a dynamic where the SEALs all just want to fend for themselves. Everybody's just selfish for the sake of survival. And SEAL Team, led by one scrappy young SEAL, I think named Quinn, they've got to teach everybody that teamwork is important, while they themselves learn that teamwork is important because they're a bunch of misfits, but they're going to have to learn how to work together. Yeah, no, nothing about this is new. That in itself isn't necessarily a sin, but beyond that, I really think that the script overall is a pretty big detriment to this movie. I don't think the writing is very good. It was written by one of the co-directors, a guy called Greg Cameron. So he's done plenty of other animation stuff for like more than a decade. He did a bunch of writing for a show called Supa Strikas, which is a South African animated program about some soccer players. I have not seen it. I mean, the whole thing is stuffed with tropes so much that, like, it is tropes the same way that the boogeyman in Nightmare Before Christmas is literally made of bugs. Like, if you remove the tropes, you no longer have a movie. There are moments where it feels like it's trying to be self-aware about that. It opens with some blatant references to the A-Team. It's in an 80s setting, and there are other elements of like heisty action movie stuff that just feels like we've seen it a million times. I don't think there's enough self-awareness to save the movie from itself. The script is a big detriment. The voice acting, I think, actually saves a decent part of the movie too. Seems like a very expensive voice cast. We got J.K. Simmons, we got Kristen Shaw, we got Patrick Warburton is here, we have Dolph Lundgren, I think, is the main bad guy. So it seems like a pretty decked out voice cast. For the most part, I think a lot of them did a pretty good job. J.K. Simmons in particular, I continue to be kind of, I don't know, impressed that he's so consistent. He's not necessarily doing a bunch of different types of parts. He has his roles, he has his specific range, but he does a good job. I mean, I can't fault him for that. I think one of the biggest detriments to the voice acting and the cast overall is the lead character. The guy who plays Quinn is called Jesse T. Usher, and he's been in a few pretty big things. Most notably, I think he was in The Boys. He plays A-Train in The Boys, the Amazon original show, which I watched for a little bit. I thought he was fine on that show, but here, I don't know, I just didn't buy him as like a scrappy kid, or in general, I don't think I bought him as an animated character. Have you had that feeling before where it just kind of sounds like someone is reading lines, or they have a vague idea of what this character is supposed to be like, but it didn't feel specific, it didn't feel fitting for this kind of story and for this setting, and especially when this character is supposed to be the hero who brings everyone together and barely has any flaws, really. He's a little bit too brash in the beginning, which gets his friend into trouble, but like, other than that, he just kind of seems like, oh, I'm gonna do everything right, and I will never lose hope, and everything's gonna be fine, and then everything is fine at the end. That's a bit of a spoiler. Pretty nice visuals, very not so great script, decent voice acting for the most part, with a few key exceptions and very important roles. Oh yeah, and just one other note on the script, there were like a couple specific lines that came across as so strange that I had to write them down. One of them was this guy, he's threatening a mean shark with like something, a very non-threatening thing, and the shark says, what are you gonna do? Merchandising opportunity me to death? And just the phrasing of that is so awkward. Just try to say opportunity me to death. Like it kind of flows, but I don't know. The phonemes there are kind of awkward. They run into each other. And then there's another line. I don't know if it was supposed to be like from a character who maybe it's one of their gimmicks that they talk in a strange way, or maybe it's just a mistake. This other character in one of the big last fights says to another buddy, you ready to get involved in this fight? I don't know, maybe on a subsequent rewatch I can figure out if that was done for a specific reason, like if it was awkward on purpose, but to me it just felt regular awkward, like it shouldn't have been in the script, like it should have been cleaned up. Don't know what the budget was. It does not strike me as an especially high budget movie. Like I said, it looks miles better than Goomba for sure. It has some kind of art direction. It doesn't just look like generic straight to DVD kind of stuff. And I think the audience response to this, I looked up on Rotten Tomatoes, there's nothing from critics as far as I could see. The audience score is pretty low. It's also pretty low on IMDb. I think it's at like 5 point something. And for me, yeah, honestly, it is very middle of the road. I was even struggling to come up with vaguely interesting things to say about it just because it is so typical. It didn't insult me. A younger kid would probably like it just fine, I guess. They might find it kind of boring. It does feel hollow overall. I know that's the most subjective thing I could possibly say. Fixing that is no small task. Giving something a soul is a sort of complex process sometimes, especially if you already made it and it's just not there. It's kind of a bit of magic that has to happen, and there's no magic here. There's nothing really all that special going on. It's fine if you just want to have it on in the background. That's maybe one of the best ways to watch it. I'm sorry. Not trying to be mean. Definitely not my thing, and apparently it's not too many other people's things either. That's basically all there is to say about it. Thanks for stopping by.